Hello, I'm John Jones-Steele. I'm COO here at West Coast Software. Back in the early 90s, I was working with Robert Cook and worked on the original version of Degeneration. Now, over 20 years later, we've been working on the HD version of Degeneration, which has just come out on Steam for PC and Mac. Today, we'll be talking with Robert. He's over in California. What was your motivation to write Degeneration?
When I started working on Degeneration, I was sharing an office with Jordan Meck, who was working on The Prince of Persia. We were in an attic in Broderbund Software. It was the beginning of a puzzle game. And what attracted me to that kind of game, and I think Jordan as well, is that you could construct it from smaller pieces. So in a way, you had these, at that point, tile games were very popular. Each tile has a logic to it, and you can combine those together and create a kind of emergent logic. And the game itself could emerge over time. Once you created the level editor, you could start to build something that was much more expressive and much more interesting of a game. Part of it, too, was inspired because I was in university at the time. I had taken a few years off between my secondary school and university. And then, so I was there, I was a bit older, but I was nevertheless living in the dormitories. And so some of the rooms were actually patterned after the rooms that were at my university. And some of the people were characters. Later in the game, not Derrida, but the president of the company was a very close friend of mine. His picture's all over the walls as almost like a fascist dictator. And it turns out he was, when I first met him, he was from Yugoslavia. And by the time I met that, he was from Slovenia. The country had dissolved. So he thought it was funny that I was giving him a sort of dictator quality.
What did you think when you heard that we were going to be remaking Degeneration in HD over 20 years after the original version?
People had talked about this with me before about remaking it, although not necessarily, it was for more modern systems, but it wasn't an upgrade of the graphics. It's a great idea. I mean, I thought, we were obviously constrained back in 1991. I mean, we had 320 by 240 pixels, and even with that, it was taxing the system to draw the graphics. So when you guys approached me saying that you could do it with 3D hardware, I was like, that sounds great. We would have done it that way had we could have at the time. And then when I saw what you finally made, I was amazed, because I was running it at an insane resolution, and it occurred to me that it was, almost an order of magnitude more pixels than we had started, and of course is beautifully written.
Now that you've had a chance to play the new version, how do you feel the controllability of this version compared to the old version is?
Well, I mean, it largely feels like the same game, because the logic is packed underneath. I think what you've done is improve the graphics dramatically, sound, and the cutscenes. But I think underneath it plays pretty much the same. At the time we put a lot of energy into getting the fluidity to it, the interaction, so it felt very responsive. I probably spent months doing that, perhaps maybe too much time. So it was good to see that was taken over entirely intact and improved.
That's what we were hoping for. What we really needed to do was to make sure that everybody could play the same game as they played in 1991, with really good graphics and with great soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's fascinating is when you guys first approached me, it's been 20-something years, and there was a few people who were very enthusiastic about it, but also bear in mind that at that time that didn't exist. And so it was very hard to know who out there was playing it. And so it's fascinating. I mean, it's not surprising, but it's still fascinating to realize that there were people who were into it. And now with the release on Steam, I've seen some of the comments, and it's like, wow, people really do remember it. So it's very heartwarming to see that. It's also great to imagine that there's enough enthusiasm behind it that you guys can make a new version.